A man has been jailed for life after the callous and cowardly killing of a rival drugs dealer after being snared by his designer Louis Vuitton ManBag. Douala Abdi failed to ditch the fake accessory he was carrying when he fatally stabbed Tyree Scott, who was 24 years old, in Hounslow in West London shortly before 1 o'clock in the morning, January the 16th. Having disposed of his clothes after stabbing Mr. Scott in the chest, he could not be parted with the bag, which helped to actually identify him. Following a 5-week trial, Abdi from Acton was found guilty of murder and having a blade and was jailed for life with a minimum term of 22 years. His accomplice and getaway driver Ben Lang from Feltham was also found guilty of murder and jailed for life with a minimum term of 22 years by Judge John Hillen KC. He said the facts of the case bring to light yet again two crimes often overlapping that can probably be called a plague on society in general and this great city and its suburbs in particular: drug dealing and knife crime. Yet again, a judge has to sentence young men who took away the life of another young man with a knife. Nothing I can do or say can bring back Tyree Scott. No sentence can place a value on his life. He said, Mr. Scott was no angel, but he had been vulnerable and defenseless when he was attacked and left to die, alone and scared. The judge added, we don't know how or why and whether he would turn his life around. He had qualities that indicated that possibility. He was a young man who was caring and full of life. He was not acting in an aggressive manner or posed any threat to you guys. At the Old Bailey sentencing, members of Mr. Scott's heartbroken family spoke of the young man they knew as kind, gentle and loyal, with big hopes and dreams. His mother said she struggled to understand how and why her son was attacked in such an evil, cold and callous way. She told the court Tyrese was 6'3", and despite his size, he was the gentlest person I know. He was loving, kind, loyal and funny, and he had the most amazing cheeky smile. Ty was only 24 years old. He had so many years ahead of him. He had so many dreams and aspirations. And then pointing to a photograph of his coffin, she said, this picture is the outcome of what carrying a knife leads to and the daily consequences of knife crime. She said, I hope that one day no other person will have to feel the way I do and have to bury their child before their time because of callous, cowardly people like Douala Abdi and Ben Lang. Addressing the defendants in the dock, the grandmother said Tyrese was a beautiful soul, full of kindness and love. He was a bright young man with a future full of promise who should have had the chance to outlive me, to grow and to thrive, but because of you and your senseless and cruel actions, that future was taken away from him and from us all who loved him so deeply. So the court heard that's how Abdi and Lang had driven up beside the victim and got out. Abdi delivered the fatal blow, but Lang was standing beside him, jurors were told, and both men then got back in their car and Lang sped off, leaving Mr. Scott bleeding to death on the residential streets. The pair then fled to Morocco, only to be arrested at Stansted Airport days later upon their return to the UK. The prosecutor, Zoe Johnson, had told jurors the background to the murder was linked to drug dealing and Mr. Scott had been operating on rival territory. She had said, we will never know the precise reason why Tyree Scott died that night. There is no evidence that he knew the other defendants or had met them before. Drug dealing is an ugly, competitive business in which dealers protect their turf at any cost. It was Tyree Scott's exposure to that world which led to his murder. Evidence including CCTV, mobile phone data, and GPS tracker. Before leaving Britain, Lane gave Mohammed a drug-dealing phone referred to as the Rocky Line. Alan was said to be in a relationship with Mohammed and acted under his instructions, with both helping Lang and Abdi to escape. A compelling case against the defense including CCTV, mobile phone data and a GPS tracker on the attacker's hire car. Abdi wore a black hooded jacket with a white Trapstar logo on the front, part of an outfit he dumped following the murder, with the exception of this Louis Vuitton ManBag that he had. Prosecutor said Abdi and Lang worked as a team with a common purpose during the attack. Abdi told the court he was not the stabber. Lang admitted being at the scene but claimed he did not know Abdi was going to stab Mr. Scott and neither encouraged him nor participated in any way. She said, drug dealing is an ugly, competitive business in which dealers protect their turf at any cost. It was Tyree Scott's exposure to that world which led to his murder. Evidence including CCTV, mobile phone data, and GPS tracker on the attacker's hire car made a compelling case against the defendants. At the time of the stabbing, Abdi was wearing a black hooded jacket with a Trapstar logo in white on the front of the jacket and a Louis Vuitton ManBag with a distinctive buckle on the strap. After the murder, Abdi dumped his outfit, except for the ManBag because he was so attached to it, and it became important helping to identify him at the scene. Prosecutors asserted that Abdi and Lang had worked as a team with a common purpose when Mr. Scott was stabbed. In his evidence, Lang claimed he had no knowledge that his co-D was going to stab Mr. Scott and did not encourage or participate in any way. In mitigation, his barrister Naeem Mia Casey described him as an immature idiot who had gone into the witness box and told jurors who did what. On his lack of previous convictions, Mr. Meehan said, "He has gone big right at the very beginning. According to the jury's verdict, he will have to live with that." Abdi had previous convictions for having a blade in 2022 and was in breach of his suspended sentence when he killed Mr. Scott. There were a couple of others, Reda Mohammed and Morgan Allen. They were convicted of perverting the course of justice. Mohammed and Allen were each jailed for 4.5 years. Detective Inspector Paul Fagans, who led the investigation, said drug dealing is an ugly business which has cost Tyrese his life. The case is a tragic reminder of how the supply of drugs has devastated consequences on communities. Whilst there was no evidence to suggest Tyrese knew the defendants, it was the combination of CCTV, mobile phones, and AMPR technology which checks vehicles of interest which helped us build a compelling case against these defendants. Our thoughts remain as ever with Tyrese's friends and family, and we can hope they now find a level of peace and move forward with their lives. A Luton drugs dealer has been jailed after he was caught with drugs and firearms as the force continues to crack down on serious organised crime. Officers from the force's Guns and Gangs team Boston carried out a drug warrant in December last year at a property in Luton, where they discovered a large quantity of cannabis and other drug paraphernalia. As part of their investigation, detectives carried out a raid at the Luton property which was linked to 22-year-old Kieran Church. Churchy was aware that the warrant taking place and phoned an occupant of the property to inquire as to whether they would be seizing his car, which was parked at the location. Following this conversation, officers obtained a warrant to search the vehicle where a shotgun was found alongside 2 cartridges. Church was arrested shortly afterwards in another part of Luton, having initially tried to flee from officers. A warrant was carried out at a second address linked to Church and found a small amount of cocaine, a number of phones, a bag of pills, and more than £2,000 in cash and other drugs. Under the mattress, Church also had concealed a handgun, which contained live ammunition. He was sentenced at Luton Crown Court to 7 years and 6 months behind bars.